Hello, this is Yogan Barrientos. I live in Miami, Florida. Um, I'm recording right now in my house, so there's sure to be some noises in the background. Um, so here I wrote some questions that would probably arise when there's someone who is hearing about Destiny or learning about Destiny for the first time. And so I wrote, I would say, the most core questions that probably came up within me at the time. So right now, this year's the end of 2014. When I was exposed to any sort of Destiny material, that was in 2009, in the spring of 2009. So that's about 5 years, 5 to 6 years. Just so that the listener is aware of, I guess, my history. So I'm just gonna read these questions out. I don't have any answers prepared because I'm confident I can just answer them in the moment. So the first question is, what is self-forgiveness? How do you self-forgive? So self-forgiveness, it's really the most straightforward way of looking at it. It really is forgiveness that you give, that you do with yourself, as if there is like a wrong or there's something to be corrected or to learn or to do better. And that forgiveness is to allow that door and opportunity of actually doing better through letting go of all the past judgments and energies involved in doing the self-forgiveness. Okay, so I would say how would be through simply doing it and learning and reading about how you do it based off how others have been doing it and what they've learned. So, yeah, and it's been tested over many years now, this tool. That's why it's rather reliable and rather cool to use. So, next question is, what does self-honesty have to do with self-forgiveness? Self-honesty is simply being honest with yourself, genuine, sincere, with what's really going on. It's really that simplistic. So, with self-forgiveness, if you're not self-honest, what you self-forgive, it won't really, nothing in your world will really change. I'll say that again. Nothing in your world will really change, because the self-forgiveness wasn't real, wasn't genuine. And so you'll still have that resistance, that energy within you, that point of feeling or emotion that is going to keep on keeping on the same things that have been occurring. Okay, so the next question is, what is destiny, and what does destiny refer to? So destiny is simplistically the name of the group of people who had originally, or I won't say originally, but who have been applying the tools, who tested the tools out for many years on themselves, and who are committed to support all life. And self-forgiveness is that way of becoming a person of value that is worthy, really worthy of being alive. You want to look at the point, because they honor all life. And so they honor the very life that they originate from. And that life is equal and one within everyone. And that's why these tools had to come about, because there needs to be a way to change, because we're not really living and embodying what it means to be life or life form. originate from life. So we have to go back to that point, or I don't know if we've ever been there really, but we're not there right now, so we have to get there. And that's why the tools were used and developed and tested out, and it's pretty cool. Because for me personally, I've always had things I wanted to change, and the tools and this whole process and the principles have actually opened up doors which do things I've never seen before about myself. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so next question is, how do I join Desteni? What must I do? So Desteni, like I said, is just the name of the group. So it's also something that you just sort of self-identify with, yet it's within the principle that you are genuine, sincere. And yeah, I mean, you're just walking the talk. I would say that it is something you choose to do, and there's no really requirements per se. Yet at the same time, there are obvious requirements in a way. So I would say this: do you remember what I said before about what Desteni stands for and what we're doing? So obviously, if you're doing that, then by definition, then you're obviously, part of Desteni, because that's the whole point. It's just who you are as a person, what you're living, what you're walking. Even if you don't self-identify it as it, it's still real. So it's not really about the name or being part of someone or being part of a group, but more of that principle that you're walking, which happens to be the same that everyone else is walking. So it's so individualized, so personal. This whole process, how this group functions, it's really about yourself and not about anyone else in the group. So the only reason why we have the group is because groups have power, and we're able to learn from one another and share. It's a really practical point. And life exists in all these different forms. And if you notice in the real world, everything that happens through a group has an effect on the world. You can see this in politics and religion and any movement or any organization, because they all involve many people. So naturally, for there to be change in the world, for life to emerge, there has to be people, a group together that's organized and working towards that. Okay, so the last question I have: is there anything to be afraid about Desteni, self-forgiveness, self-honesty, or any other related words? So I'll actually answer this question with a trick answer. There are those who have right to be afraid, because what we offer is something that's a way to actually create the world that you've always wanted. And even though it's something we probably would have thought we would have embraced, it's something that we actually resist. The reasons behind this is because the truth of how we actually think and what we actually feel about our lives, about our security and our comforts, it's all placed within self-interest and within ego. And that's something you can only show to yourself by actually taking on the challenge of actually becoming life, of walking this process to become life. And everyone who's walked this process can attest to all the resistance and all the points within yourself which are there's as if there's not even a little spark of life within you. There's no easy way, because it doesn't exist yet within you. All that's existing in your life has been the life you've lived, which has been of self-interest and ego. And so there's resistance. But there's really nothing to be afraid of, which is what anyone who's walked this process long enough can see, that fear is not even real, So of course there's nothing to be afraid of about destiny, self-forgiveness, self-honesty, or anything really. But you have to actually give yourself that, and until you've walked the process and done that, you're going to feel fear. You're going to experience it. And so that's why if you're listening to this and you haven't walked the process, you're going to feel fear. Because that's all that's existed in your life so far. Okay, so I would like to now end this video. So this has been my FAQ as a Destonian member, starting the process a few years ago, and yeah, this is my take on it. So I hope that my personal insights and my perspective shared in this moment as unscripted was helpful, especially to newcomers. And yeah, let this be an introduction. So hope to see you around online. Bye.